Bulavinaka, Talofa, Halolaketa, Hiorana, Malolele, and a big warm welcome to you all, our viewers, for today. My name is Manasa Tusulu. I am the Manager Research, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Water Authority of Fiji, the water and wastewater utility here in Fiji in the Pacific. And it is indeed my pleasure to welcome you to this side event for the UN Water Conference titled Meeting SDG6 in the Pacific, Challenges and Actions. This event will present challenges facing the Pacific Island countries and territories and the concrete actions that must be taken to meet SDG6 identified at the 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministers Forum that was held in Fiji in November here. We are also pleased to have partnered with the following organizations, and that is the Water Authority of Fiji, the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, or PWWA, and the Ministry of Public Works, Meteorological Services and Transport, and our Department of Water and Sewerage, and of course, with the University of the New South Wales. Our key speakers joining us for today, our Honorable Minister Ro Filipe Tuisawau, Minister for Works, Transport and Meteorological Services. Second speaker, Mr. Taitusi Wakandrawiada, our Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Public Works, Transport and Meteorological Services. Mrs. Pitalau Lucia, the Chief Executive Officer for the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association. And of course, Mr. Ian Gooden, our Chairperson for the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association. We will start this session with the opening remarks from our Honorable Minister Ro Filipe Tuisawau, the Minister for Public Works, Transport and Meteorological Services. Honorable Tuisawau was elected as Minister for Public Works, Meteorological Services and Transport in December 2022. He is a graduate of the University of the South Pacific, attaining a Bachelor of Arts and Graduate Certificate in Education. In addition, he holds a Master's in Business Administrations from Massey University in New Zealand and a Graduate Certificate in Migration Law from the Australian National University. Honorable Tuisawau served in various managerial positions in organizations such as the University of the South Pacific, Air Terminal Services, and the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat. He then served as the Human Resources Specialist at the Pacific Island organization before working as a consultant at the Melanesian Spearhead Group in Vanuatu and Vanuatu Financial Services Commission. He also served as a board director in the Airports Fiji Limited and the Rewa Provincial Council Holdings Limited. He has also contributed immensely to the development of Fiji Rugby, having served as the former president of the Fiji Rugby Union from 2008 to 2011. I will now invite Honorable Minister for his opening remarks.
Mr. Gilbert Hongbo, Chairman of the UN Water, Professor Greg Leslie, Head of the UNSW Global Water Institute, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Nisa Mbulavinaka, Talofa, Kia Orana, Halo Olakata, Malo Elele. I am pleased to join you at this United Nations Water Conference side event titled Meeting SDG 6 in the Pacific, Challenges and Actions, representing the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, 21 member countries. Water is a fundamental part of all aspects of life on our planet. In the Pacific, prioritizing water will be essential to reaching sustainable development goals by 2030 and is a key element in our challenges on climate change, energy, the environment, food security, poverty, gender equality and health, and many others. The 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministers Forum was held in Fiji from 14th to 20th November 2022 and was attended by the ministers from the Cook Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, Fiji, Nauru, Niue, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tokelau, and Tonga, as well as other senior government representatives from American Samoa, Republic of Marshall Islands, and Tuvalu. Ministers and government representatives that attended the Ministers' Forum made country presentations and held plenary discussions to map a pathway towards achieving the SDGs. A communique was signed on the 15th of November 2022 that highlights the key challenges faced by the Pacific Islands, together with an action-oriented way forward for the Pacific. In this session, we will hear more about the signed communique from the PWWA CEO, Mrs. Lucia Pitolau, and PWWA Board Chairman, Mr. Ian Gooden. Ministers and government representatives at the 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministers Forum also acknowledged that the UN 2023 Water Conference would have a greater focus on sustainable development and integrated management of water resources for the achievement of social, economic, and environmental objectives. They saw that as an opportunity to shape the 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministers Forum as a Pacific pre-summit event for the UN 2023 Water Conference. We are here today coming as one Pacific voice to echo what is being faced by our Pacific Islands. The especially fragile island ecosystems of the small island nations place them on the front line in the battle against climate change, making them the litmus test for climate change impacts globally. Often referred to as a people from the small islands, Pacific Islanders are in fact a people from the large oceans. Ministers and government representatives at the 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministers Forum noted the urgent need for strengthened engagement in water security as a key component of Pacific resilience, and encouraged greater participation of the sector in dialogue for action, supporting climate and disaster resilience at the local, national, and regional levels. The way forward for Pacific Islands is to build climate resilience infrastructure that adapts to the effects of climate change effectively. It is affirmed that there is an urgent need for greater prioritization of water, sanitation, and hygiene at the national and regional level, and in related funding and capacity building. We need to accelerate change and take action now. I now declare the United Nations Water Conference side event titled Meeting SDG6 in the Pacific, Challenges and Actions open. Vinaka and may God bless us all.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for those enlightening opening remarks. We will now welcome our second speaker. Our second speaker is the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Taitusi Wakanrawiada. He is the PS for the Ministry of Public Works, Transport, and Meteorological Services. He will speak to us about water challenges here in Fiji. Permanent Secretary Taitusi Wakanrawiada is a Master of Science graduate in Water Science and Engineering from the Netherlands and a Civil Engineering graduate from Australia. He started his career as a civil engineer and ascended through the ranks to become the General Manager Corporate Services in the Water Authority of Fiji. He has relevant experience in Fiji's land and water resource management groups and in the transition from the National Roads Group to the Fiji Roads Authority. In addition to his work in land and water resource management, he was project civil engineer for the Fiji Electricity Authority's Nandarivatu hydropower project. He was appointed as permanent secretary to the Ministry of Infrastructure in 2019, and as permanent secretary, he is taking the lead role in ensuring that the rural communities in Fiji have proper sanitation and clean source of drinking water. Please, Mr. Taitusi.
Thank you, Mamasa. Thank you, Mamasa. To you all. Today I will be speaking the things that are challenging to Hello. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm glad to be here to be presenting on water challenges in Fiji. And this morning I will be speaking regarding what the Water Authority of Fiji is and what are the challenges faced by Water Authority and the people of Fiji in terms of the water sector. Not only water, but wastewater sector. And also looking at issues or things that the Water Authority of Fiji is working towards to combat the problems of water in Fiji. Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to briefly introduce myself. I know Manasseh has done the work well. My name is Tetu Sivakandravel. I'm currently the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Public Works, Meteorological Services and Transport. Just briefly looking at the roles and responsibilities of the position across the sector before I touch on the actual presentations. Looking at public works, public work looks after Water Authority, looks after Fiji Roads Authority. It looks after the Department of Energy and the Energy Fiji Limited. Also looking at meteorological services, and under transport we look at marine safety, also government shipping services and land transport authority. So that's basically a very broad perspective of my role and responsibilities as permanent secretary. So under the Water Authority of Fiji, under the area of operations, we look at water and wastewater. So currently, at the moment, water production in Fiji is around 134 megaliters of water is produced annually. Out of these 134 megaliters of water that is produced, we have 156,385 water connections or water meters that is provided to individual households. We have around 33,381 wastewater connections in Fiji. So looking at percentage-wise, 92% of our population is residential customers, and we have 7% commercial customers and government institutions. Now looking at our Sustainable Development Goal 6 in terms of what we have so far, in terms of trying to achieve the targets of ensure access to water and sanitation to all by 2030. Our national statistics in terms of our water sector, we are reaching around 82% of our population, national. And under that population, 98% of access is in the urban areas, and we have 58% access in the rural communities. In our wastewater sector, we have only in the urban sector we have 28% of access towards our SDG6 as per our targets. So we can briefly see that there is a need for work to be done, especially in our rural sector, in terms of the provision of water, and both in urban and rural sectors in the wastewater areas of provisions. So there is a challenge in this area for the Water Authority of Fiji and the government of Fiji to move towards ensuring that services are provided in the wastewater and water sector, especially in the rural areas in the water sector and in urban areas and rural areas in wastewater sector. So in the Water Authority of Fiji and the government of Fiji, we have a few challenges that are being faced. And I think this is also quite sort of similar to other countries or other developing countries in the Pacific and also maybe in the world. One of the major challenges that we face here at Water Authority of Fiji is our aging infrastructure. Okay? We have pipes that are more than 50 years old. We have communities that are developing and extending. The pipes that are feeding these communities are now becoming very small, and we have very old pipes and very old fittings that are being used that have been laid there for more than 50 years. So there is a problem of aging infrastructure, okay? And also in the infrastructure sector in Fiji, the division of rural infrastructure and urban infrastructure is quite evident. the communities from the rural communities have moved to the urban communities for social services and needs for education and schools, and this has somehow put pressure on the urban infrastructure, especially on water. So the demand for water demand in the urban sector has somehow rocketed, and that has put pressure on the Water Authority of Fiji services, provision of services. Another major challenge with Water Authority of Fiji is currently the system is leaking. We have a very major leak in our water systems. 50 more than almost 50% of our water that is being produced currently is leaking as non-revenue water. Okay? So that is one of the major challenges currently at the moment with Water Authority of Fiji. And this will be is being expected mainly because of the aging infrastructure that we have. Okay? Aging infrastructure, pipes that have been laid some years ago, uh, fall out and are deteriorating, and there's frequent burst mains that are occurring every now and then within Water Authority of Fiji. So to put it into some perspective, we've experienced 200 bursts per 100 kilometer of pipe of water mains, while the global benchmark is 13 bursts per 100 kilometers of mains. Okay? In terms of the leakages of service connections, we've experienced 300 leaks. Water Authority of Fiji, when I say we have, in regards to a benchmark of 3 leaks per 100 service connections. Okay, so you can see the big gap that Water Authority of Fiji needs to meet in terms of its burst mains and its leaks into the systems. So currently, about in terms of monetary perspective, WEF is losing $23 million annually in terms of loss of costs through leakages every year. Okay? So there is a need for better asset management, better maintenance, and replacement programs that needs to come on board to be done by Water Authority of Fiji in order to curb these leaks and drop the current non-revenue water level to acceptable levels. Okay. Then we have our environmental challenges, mainly from the wastewater sector. Currently, we have a few treatment plants around the country, and many of these treatment plants, because of the urban drift and because of the expense of the industrial activities, and because of the expansion of or the increase in economic development in Fiji, our wastewater treatment plants are currently overloaded. They're currently overloaded, and many of these treatment plants were built many years ago. The capacity of these treatment plants cannot really take the load that is coming through. So it has now resulted in non-compliance, environment non-compliance of these treatment plants in terms of discharge to our environment. So this is something that seriously needs to be looked at by by the Water Authority of Fiji under the wastewater sector in order to look at the environment challenges that is caused by the wastewater discharge to the environment uh, by Water Authority of Fiji. Another challenge we have currently facing is, I think, is our financial sustainability. Water Authority of Fiji currently relies on the Fiji government as a provider of its financial support for its operations and its functions daily. Currently, the water tariff in Fiji is one of the lowest in the Pacific. We are selling our water at 15 cents uh, per, per 100 liters of water currently to the public of Fiji. And on top of that 15 cents, there is also free allowance of water to the communities of Fiji. People that are earning less than $30,000 per year, they are given free water, the percentage that is given to them. Okay? So, in terms of sustainability based from operations and revenue, Water Authority of Fiji, because of the low tariff rate that is being provided 15 cents, Water Authority of Fiji has to spend more annually because 15 cents 300 liters of water that is being achieved from there. Another major challenge that we have is our resilience to climate change in terms of our infrastructure, our water sector infrastructure. You know, what Fiji is vulnerable to heavy rainfall, cyclones, and many climate-related activities. These have impacts on our environment and also have impact on our infrastructure. Mainly, these impacts are mainly on our bulk water systems, flooding, because flooding and erosion of soil erosion, landslides. This affects our main supply lines, and during these events, many of our treatment plants or many of our systems are affected due to heavy rainfall and landslides, which washes away our major bulk supply systems. But Water Authority of Fiji has embarked on some projects, working very closely with ADB, the European Investment Bank, and the Green Climate Fund, in terms of uh, trying to provide water for the people of Fiji, especially in the Suvarnasuri corridor, where the demand is quite high. So we have come up with a project, with a very river water supply project. This project basically will improve the quantity of water that is coming to people of Fiji, especially in the Suvarnasuri corridor, an addition of around 40 megaliters of water, 40 million liters of water per day that will be pumped into the system. Uh, and also, there's a plans for future expansions from this project that will bring up to 80 million liters per day once this project is complete. This project is expected to be completed around this year, around May to June, and it will be benefiting around 360,000 people around the Suvarnasuri-Lami corridor once this project comes online. And our government priorities, where the focus is in terms of government priorities. Currently, today we are having our Water Sector Strategy 2050 that is being run by Water Authority of Fiji currently, looking at the future in terms of the water sector and what is the need to be planned up to 2050. What is the direction that needs to be taken by Water Authority and the government of Fiji? But in terms of government priorities, we are looking at developing plans and policies for strengthening of the freshwater resources sort of control and governance, and services, water services and water catchment management plans. We have also informal settlements that are in the country, and plans are in terms of provision of water supply and wastewater services around our informal settlements. Our safe water systems and proper communal sewage systems in rural communities, and our rural water and sanitation policy. This is an area that we are looking at moving. So currently the government is focusing on rural water and rural sanitation, a very clear demarcation between urban water and rural water. So government is moving towards pushing for more rural water and rural sanitation as per our targets, given that we lag behind in rural water supply and rural sanitation. There's a need for improvement in data collection, management and sharing of reports, and also asset management. These are also an area that we are looking at improving in terms of our government priorities. And enhancement of awareness and conservation around the communities of the people of Fiji, especially in our rural and urban communities and informal sectors. Something to do with coming together and working together, government community partnership on awareness and conservation. And of course, strengthening our regulatory role for the water and accessibility to water quality, and making sure we maintain the pristine environment that we have currently in Fiji. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for listening to my presentation. That is in a very brief perspective, the water challenges that is currently faced by the people of Fiji, and what the Water Authority of Fiji, as the service provider for water and wastewater services in Fiji, is doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary Mr. Taitusi, for that presentation. We will now have two short video clips I will introduce the first video, and this is where the Fiji government and Water Authority of Fiji are proud to support the new Rewa River Water Supply Scheme under the Fiji Urban Water Supply and Wastewater Management Investment Program. So this project will deliver continuous water supply to the Greater Suva Nosori area. So we will play that short clip now.
I was very pleased to be part of the tour today. I'd like to thank the Water Authority staff and also the project staff in Viria. It's a very critical project, and from what I've been briefed on, we should be solving most of the water issues in the Super Corridor area when that project comes online. Hopefully by May, June. So. And I'm happy with the progress report made by the contractors, the Water Authority, and also the in terms of the overall project, which mostly is on time, unless there's probably natural disaster or something like that. And there have been some issues relating to some of the communities, and I'm happy that progress has been made in those discussions. And it's quite a complicated project in terms of the development partners. ADEP, I think the European Development Bank, and Fiji government, of course. So, and that's I'm happy that that's moving forward. With regard to the Wela area here, the treatment plant, and I can see the complexities involved, and also the Waila pump. So I commend the Water Authority executive and the staff in terms of the work done to in terms of mitigation. So there are some emergency power generators being installed that should also alleviate some of the issues we've been facing. And maintenance work has been, as I saw today, it's quite a big task in terms of changes of those the pumps and the water pipes. That was what was causing a lot of the disruptions. So we're looking forward to better supplies moving forward, especially from media onwards. Thank you.
Thank you. So on to our second video, and this is probably the most important video that we are here for, and that is when we held the Pacific Water and Wastewater Conference here in Fiji in November 2022. On the 14th, we had the 6th Pacific Water Ministerial Forum to discuss the challenges and actions on how to meet the SDG6 in the region. So we had about 14 ministers and assistant ministers and senior government representatives that came together to discuss the challenges and the way forward. So we will watch that video now. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be the chair of this meeting of the Pacific Water Ministers, Water and Wastewater Ministers. We've had a good forum, good input from the various ministers, and I'm very glad that we're able to come to an agreement on a communique on some of the key things that we agree on that the Pacific needs to focus on. There's a strong emphasis on this communique on wastewater and sanitation, and this is something that we as the Pacific ministers will then take to the United Nations conference on this same issue in 2023. So I think it's been very successful. The expo has been good. The arrangements by all of the organizations that have been here have been very good, and we're very thankful also to all of our sponsors, all those that helped make this a great event, and we look forward to it leading to significant impact on the lives of our Pacific people.
Thank you. So we'll now have the honor of introducing our third speaker, and she is Ms. Pitolau Lucia, our Chief Executive Officer from the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association. Ms. Pitolau Lucia is the CEO for the PWWA and has since late 2016. She helped establish PWWA as a permanent regional organization for Pacific water and wastewater utilities in 2017. She has held a senior leadership role for more than 25 years in the public sector, including CEO of the Samoa Ministry of Revenue, Deputy CEO for Finance, and Deputy Secretary for the Ministry of the Prime Minister in Samoa. Please join and welcome Lucia as she delivers her communique, Part 1, Challenges. Vinaka Lucia.
Thank you, Manasa. Tano Falava from Samoa, the home base for PWWA. Let me first thank the organizers of this UN Water Conference side event, which enables us to present the communique from the 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministerial Forum to this important international conference. It had been the aim of the 6th Water Ministers Forum to get to the UN 2023 Water Conference to present this communique. The Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministerial Forum, as had been said by previous speakers, is held during the annual conference of the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, and last year was the 6th year of the ministerial and the 13th annual PWWA conference and expo. Just let me speak briefly on the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, or PWWA. It is the peak body in the Pacific for water and wastewater, and the only association of its kind in the Pacific. PWWA is a membership organization owned by 30 water and wastewater utilities from 21 countries and territories in the Pacific, which means it covers all the Pacific Island countries and territories in the northern to the southern Pacific area. Allied members consisting of water and wastewater industry, private sector companies, contractors, and individuals from around the world make up the rest of PWWA's membership. PWWA is supported by its affiliated partner organizations such as DFAT through the Australian Water Partnership, the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank, and the government of Samoa, who work with it in collaboration for its vision of sustainable water and sanitation for Pacifica, and in support of PWWA's mission for strengthening advocacy, collaboration, and capacity building for sustainable water and sanitation across the Pacific. The 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministers Forum was held in Nadi, Fiji from 14th to the 15th of November last year, and was attended by ministers and senior government representatives from 14 Pacific countries and territories. The forum came on the back of COVID-19 and some very serious natural disasters that tested the resilience of the Pacific people. And the meeting was actually chaired by the Honorable Minister Jone Usamate, Minister for Infrastructure, Meteorological Services, Lands and Mineral Resources of PG during that year. The theme of the overall conference and ministerial forum was resilience and water security. And at the meeting, presentations were made by BWWA on the performance and progress of its member utilities in pursuit of the SDG6 targets, a presentation from SPC on the status of the region in relation to water security and resilience, including progress towards SDG6, and a presentation from the Global Climate Fund on investment financing, the Green Climate Fund on investment financing for resilience, water security, and climate change. And a presentation was also made by the group of young water professionals from all BWWA utilities, showing their strong support to the issue of water security and resilience as impacting the Pacific communities and countries. The ministers, in their individual statements and taking notes of the issues raised in the various presentations, highlighted the following challenges. One, the Pacific is home to 11.4 million people. The largest of the countries is Papua New Guinea with 8.2 million people, and the smallest is Tokelau with a population of about 1,300. Nearly half of the population are children and youth. These are the people at most risk of water security and safe access, the people who represent the future of these countries. Secondly, while Pacific Island countries and territories have much in common in terms of shared water security challenges and solutions, significant disparities persist between and within countries with respect to access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities. And ministers stress the need for significantly increased and sustained support to address the needs of the region's large, rural, remote, and informal urban communities living outside of centralized water and sanitation services. They noted that the latest data of the Pacific Island countries and territories indicate that about half of the Pacific population live without access to basic drinking water, and more than 2/3 live without access to basic sanitation. Thirdly, ministers noted the serious water security and resilience challenges currently facing the region, including threats to groundwater resources impacted by drought, over abstraction, inappropriate land use practices, and saltwater intrusion, surface water impacted by pollution, catchment degradation, mineral resource extraction and deforestation, and essential water and sanitation infrastructure impacted by extensively old infrastructure, poor asset management, extreme climate events such as storms and inundation, and significantly increased material and transport costs. Fourth, ministers noted the Pacific people experience some of the world's highest exposures to the risks of disaster and climate change, including significant and repeating impacts on water security, including Typhoon Bopha in 2012 and Category 5 Tropical Cyclone Spam and Winston in 2015 and 2016 respectively, and noted the critical role of water utilities in disaster risk reduction, disaster response, and climate change adaptation. Fifth, ministers noted in the time since the last Pacific Water Ministers Forum in 2019, Pacific water security challenges have been further exacerbated by the compounding effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and natural hazards such as tropical cyclone Harold Yasa, and Ana, the eruption of the Hunga Ha'apai volcano and associated tsunami, and serious drought currently affecting the atoll nations of Kiribati and Tuvalu. 6 ministers noted that despite demonstrations of self-reliance during the pandemic, the Pacific continues to face serious challenges in developing and retaining local technical expertise and human capacity to support the core functions of modern water utilities. 7, ministers noted the disproportionate impact of water and sanitation challenges on women and girls and other vulnerable groups, and the important roles they play as both water managers and stakeholders, noted the progress made by utilities towards gender parity of technical and management staff, as well as the challenges remaining in achieving diversity in governance structures. 8, ministers noted that while progress has been made in improving the monitoring and reporting of water, sanitation, and hygiene, significant data gaps exist that constrain management responses, including with respect to safely managed facilities, and noted the critical role of water resources monitoring, and assessment to inform the evidence-based sustainable management of the region's fragile and limited water resources. 9, ministers acknowledge that PWWA utilities are now fully capable of collecting data in a standard and systematic way and urge the PWWA to continue its benchmarking efforts and for PWWA members to actively participate in data collection and training, and further acknowledge the important role of the benchmarking process in informing investment planning and strategy development, and urged a greater integration of water and sanitation data collection across the water sector and with national information management systems. And lastly, ministers confirmed the critical role that water utilities play in supporting the resilience of Pacific communities, including through support to the agreed goals of the Framework for Resilient Development in the Pacific, the 2050 Strategy for the Blue Pacific Continent, and the Boe Declaration on Regional Security. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges highlight the call for what is the theme of this year's water conference, accelerated action. And we only have 8 years to 2030, and we need action now. Thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. Back to you, Manasa. Thank you.
Fafatai, Lucia, and thank you so much for presenting part one of our Pacific Communique. Just before I hand it over to our last speaker, to the audience, please, you can type if any questions that you have for the panel on the chat box. So, feel free to do that. To introduce our fourth and our last speaker for this session, we will now like to welcome Mr. Ian Gooden, Chairperson of the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, to deliver the second part of the communique. Ian is a chartered professional engineer with over 25 years of civil engineering and management experience in South Africa, the UK, New Zealand, and the Solomon Islands. He grew up and studied in South Africa before immigrating to the UK and then on to New Zealand in 1989. Ian holds qualifications equivalent to a New Zealand bachelor's degree specializing in water and wastewater and an executive MBA from Waikato University. Ian has worked mainly in the local government and consulting sectors in roading and three water infrastructure management and capital projects with many years at an executive management level. Ian was formerly a general manager infrastructure at Tauranga City Council before deciding to give something back to society and look up to the role of general manager Solomon Water in July 2015. Please let us welcome Ian as he delivers part two of our communique actions. Ian?
Thank you, Manasa, and good morning, Chairman and everybody. We feel greatly privileged to have the opportunity to speak to you today. I will follow on from what Lucia has said in terms of the resolutions that were made by our ministers at that ministerial forum. But given the huge challenges faced by the Pacific to achieve just basic water access to water and sanitation, and build resilience to climate change, the forum acknowledged and declared the following actions requiring attention and support from its partners and the international donor community. The ministers acknowledged that while progress is being made by all countries, the region is collectively off track to meet the SDG6 targets for universal access to safe water and sanitation, and therefore accelerated efforts are needed at all levels to prioritise urgent action on sustainable financing, data and information, capacity development, innovation and governance. There is a need for strengthened engagement in water security as a key component of Pacific resilience, and encourage greater participation of the sector in dialogue for action, supporting climate and disaster resilience at a local, national and regional level. The ministers highlighted the urgency of scaling up national and regional investments to support the science, infrastructure and local capacity needed to establish and maintain locally appropriate and sustainable water, sanitation and hygiene solutions resilient to the impacts of climate change and disaster. Acknowledging this urgent need and accelerating the impacts of climate change on the sector, the ministers called on our development partners to urgently support enhanced accessibility of the sector to existing and emerging funding mechanisms such as climate financing. The ministers noted with concern the disproportionately large number of Pacific people living without access to safe sanitation and hygiene facilities, including significant populations in rural, remote and informal urban areas, including an estimated 1.8 million people practicing open defecation, and called for urgent, targeted and collaborative action by governments, development partners and civil society over the next 5 years, coinciding with the final 5 years of the United Nations Decade of Action on Water and Sanitation, to address this relatively neglected development issue with profound impacts on human health, livelihoods and resilience. Ministers and government officials noted with concern the serious impact of untreated and partially treated wastewater on Pacific receiving environments, with associated impacts on freshwater and marine ecosystems, human health and livelihoods, and urged increased and targeted support to countries to improve the monitoring, regulation, treatment, reuse and safe disposal of wastewater. The ministers recognised the General Assembly Resolution number 73/226 to convene in New York from 22 to 24 March 2023, this United Nations conference on the midterm comprehensive review of the implementation of the objectives of the International Decade for Action, Water for Sustainable Development, which is also known as the United Nations 2023 Water Conference that we are presenting to today. The ministers and government representatives acknowledged the relevance of the United Nations Water Conference to addressing the region's serious water and sanitation challenges, and agreed that a proposal be submitted to declare the 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministers Forum as a Pacific pre-summit event for the conference. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, ministers and senior government representatives attending the 6th Pacific Water and Wastewater Ministers Forum last year were keen that this communique be presented to this important conference by participating Pacific Island country representatives. Some of our Pacific member countries are attending, and we trust their voices will be heard and that concrete steps will be taken to address the problems of our Pacific countries, especially the most vulnerable, smaller Pacific Island countries. It is our sincere hope that through this side event, further attention is drawn to this rather neglected and hugely challenged region of the world, the Pacific, with its unique and enormous challenges. I thank you for the opportunity to present to you today on behalf of the Ministers and the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, and hope and trust that you are able to take note of the concerns raised by our Ministers, and we look forward to ongoing dialogue to help improve the situation of water and sanitation in the Pacific. Thank you very much.
Vinaka Wakalewu, Ian, and thank you for that presentation on our part 2 of the communique. At this juncture, I would like to again take this opportunity to thank our partners, the Water Authority of Fiji, to thank the PWWA CEO, Ms. Lucia, and of course our chairperson, Mr. Ian Gooden, Honorable Minister, Mr. Ro Felipe Tuisawao, and our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Te Tusi, for being part of the panelist this morning. And of course, our key partner, the University of New South Wales. Thank you so much for organizing this for us. We are so so thankful for putting this event together. So if we have questions at this stage, if feel free for the audience to put that through in the chat box. I know we have about 8 minutes left. I believe there are no questions coming through, so thank you so much again to the UN, University of New South Wales, and PWWA, and for all the organizing committee behind the UN site conference today in ensuring meeting SDG6, the challenges and action here in the Pacific. So we'll be signing off here from Fiji. Thank you so much for everyone that has been attending and listening to the Pacific Voice. So Vinaka Pokalewu Malolele from Fiji. Vinaka.